Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, March the 26th, 2020. It is currently 10:49 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you once again live from Victory Baptist Church, located here in the middle of nowhere. Yes, the middle of nowhere, Texas. That's literally, I should change the name of where the church is located to, yes, Victory Baptist Church in Nowhere, Texas. Now, we're actually located in Ovalo, Texas. There's not much here. In fact, what I'm going to do today on the Podpage site in the blog section of the Theology Central podcast, I will post a picture of what I found when I got here earlier. On my way here this morning, what I found, what I saw. I will post a picture, and you will see that we are literally located in the middle of nowhere. Now, if you haven't been to our pod page, well, you really should go. You really should. I'll give you the web address. Give me 1 second. I didn't even think about this until we went live. Sometimes you don't think about something until you hit the go live button. Then like, wait a minute, I've got to, here we go. Give me 1 second. Pod page. All right. Here is the web address. If you would like to visit our pod page, it is www.podpage, P-O-D-P-A-G-E, podpage.com/theology, the minus symbol central. Podpage, P-O-D-P-A-G-E.com. Give that to you again. Podpage, podpage.com/theology. I'm going to call it the minus symbol so no one is confused. The minus symbol, the word central. Podpage.com/theology, minus symbol central. Go to our pod page when you get there, depending on what device you're looking at it. You should have these three little lines, which bring a drop-down menu. Click on blog. And right now, this is what you'll find in the blog section. The mystery of incarnation, a theological discussion on the incarnation. Second, you'll see a blog post called Why Do People Believe in Hell? We're going to be doing a live broadcast about that article. Third, will the real Luther please stand up? Another one, the Puritans on Adam and the Covenant of Works. And then, what is worldliness? Easy riches, sudden death, trials and temptations. All of that is found in the blog section of the Theology Central pod page. If you want to know what a pod page is a very easy way to turn your podcast into a website. All right. It's very simple to do. It takes just a couple of minutes. And it's a new thing. It's still in beta, and we're utilizing it to see what the response is. So, yes, I will post the photograph of what I saw this morning in the pod page blog section sometime today, and you can take a look at it. Again, podpage.com, podpage, P-O-D-P-A-G-E, podpage.com/theology, minus symbol central. All right. And then you can find it. If you cannot find it for any reason, email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. And guess what? I will send you the link. I don't want anything else from you. There you go. See, makes it very simple. So there, definitely check that out. All right. After we've got that all out of the way, let's get down to business because we have a lot to talk about today. I'm probably going to do a number of live broadcasts here from Victory Baptist Church this morning. I'm going to at least try. Hopefully they will be successful in giving you something to think about, something to be challenged by, and I hope it will be beneficial. So we're going to be talking in this episode about COVID-19, the coronavirus, the pandemic. We're going to look at it hopefully from a somewhat of a different perspective. Some people have addressed this perspective, but more from a secular perspective. We're going to look at this perspective from a theological one. We're going to look at this subject from a theological perspective, and hopefully that will give you much to think about and discuss with other people, especially other people who profess to be Christians. But let's begin with a COVID-19, a coronavirus pandemic update. All right. I think that's very important. All right. Let's get here to, let me see. I'm looking at I've got all kinds of news here in regards to it. Here we go. Here is the latest numbers dealing with COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic that the whole world is currently living through. Here are the latest numbers. Total confirmed cases. The total confirmed cases of COVID-19 currently stands at 492,603. 492,603 confirmed cases as of Thursday, March the 26th at 10:55 a.m. Now, please remember, when you look at that number, this is very important information. A lot of places are doing very little testing to almost none. And so therefore, especially here I can only speak here in the United States of America, that means the total number and the total number in the U.S. as of Thursday, March the 26th, 2020 at 10:55 a.m. is 69,246. So confirmed cases in the United States of America is 69,000. Globally, 492,603. But in the U.S., it's the issue of testing. Testing. If you're testing very few people, then the 69,000 total doesn't really give you an accurate picture of what is going on. So keep that in mind. Now, the total number of deaths as of March the 26th, Thursday, March the 26th, now 10:56 a.m. The total number of deaths is 22,184. 22,184. Now, before we move on to what I really want to discuss in this episode, let's just take a few minutes and please try to wrap your mind around that 22,184 people have died. Those are human beings created in the image of God who entered into eternity. We cannot, I know it's just numbers on a screen, or for me, it's numbers on a screen. For you, it's just numbers being stated in an audio podcast. But I want you to just really remember, those are human beings. Now, what someone will say, well, so what? Look at how many people die from this. Look at how many people die from that. I don't understand why people ever say that kind of thing. Look, 22,000 people dying is a horrible thing, and it should bother you. Now, yes, there may be more people who die from this or from this, and don't downplay 22,000 people dying because more people die from something else. That's not that point is just it doesn't make any sense. Now, if you want to talk about why we are responding this way versus why we don't respond to other things, okay, let's have that discussion later. Right now, let's just acknowledge over 22,000 people have died. They're gone. And they were fathers, they were mothers, they were daughters, they were sons. They had family, and they left family behind. And for those family members who lost someone, trust me, they don't care that more people died of something else. Their loved one died because of COVID-19, the coronavirus. So show some compassion, show some sympathy. Don't be there online throwing out, absolutely foolish statements that just make you sound like you're evil instead of being compassionate. This many people have died, and that's a horrible thing. That's a tragedy. And more people are going to continue to die. So that is something we need to continue to pray about, show sympathy to, and not say things that come across like we have no heart and that we are evil, evil people. Let's just be careful how we speak in regards to the situation. And the loss of human life should be the thing that is of the greatest concern for us, and it should be something that we obviously want to do everything we can to ensure that other people are not infected, that other people do not possibly face death. We want to make sure that we take whatever precautions we're asked to take in order to protect the lives of others, right? Sometimes it's interesting. If you say, hey, like if you're a church and say, we're not going to meet, or I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that, you'll get some super spiritual Christian saying, you're living in fear. You should be godly. You should be godly. And it's like, could it be that I'm taking necessary precautions to ensure that other people are not infected, that other people possibly will not die? Why is it that if you take precautions, you're living in fear and you're not spiritual? Okay. Why couldn't it be that you're taking necessary precautions because you care about human life? You remember we talk about this whole idea of the sanctity of human life, and we don't want to harm other people. We don't want to harm our neighbor. We don't want to do anything to cause physical harm, not to even our enemies. Isn't that the biblical model? Love others. Do not kill. Do not bring any harm to anyone. Do everything you can to protect. So it's just interesting. Hey, we're not going to do this because of the coronavirus. Well, if you had faith in God, or because I'm trying to show love for my neighbor. So let's remember and I'm really stressing this because we're going to turn and talk about other things, but I want to just start by emphasizing people are sick, people are dying. That is a great concern, and that is the number one concern, is the loss of human life and the consequences that have for every single family who loses that father, that mother, that daughter, that son. They have emotional consequences, and for some, it could lead to great financial consequences as well. So keep that in mind. But for this episode, I want us to turn and start looking to the future. Because after the coronavirus has come to an end, once we can declare everything is safe, everyone returned to normal, the coronavirus, the COVID-19 situation is over, we are done with it for now. The next thing we're going to see is going to be a big sign that says up ahead, consequences. Consequences up ahead, exit up ahead, because we have to exit right into whatever the consequences of this global pandemic is going to be. And we probably should start thinking of what those consequences are. Now, let's look at this. Let's start with this. Let's start with the definition of consequence. Consequence, a result or effect of an action or condition. A result or effect of an action or condition. Read that again. Consequence, a result or effect of an action or condition. Now we have two things that are we're going to have really two kind of areas of consequence to think about, right? First, we're going to have the condition. We're going to find ourselves economically. All right, we're going to have the condition, we're going to find ourselves economically. After all of this is said and done, and we take that exit to the road called consequence, and we get on that road, we're going to look around, and we're going to see, now give me 1 second. I have to do something with my computer. All right. Is getting ready to do a scan. And I'm like, no, don't do a scan. Don't do a scan. I'm live on the air. Don't do a scan. All right. So we're going to exit this road called consequence. And once we get on that road, we're going to look around and look at the condition economically that we find ourselves. There's going to be an economic condition we are going to find ourselves as a result of everything that happened to the economy. Listen, to the economy due to the coronavirus. So that's going to be one area of consequence we're going to have to look at. We're going to find ourselves in an economic condition that is a result of all of the economic fallout that comes from the coronavirus. Everything that happened. All right. That's very important. Number two, when we take that road called consequence, that exit that we're all going to have to take, everyone's going to take this exit. We're going to look around, and there's also going to be a spiritual condition. There's going to be a consequence spiritually that we're going to have to deal with. And that's going to be how it affects what condition we find the churches, what condition we find Christians in as a result of everything that happened with the coronavirus. The coronavirus happened. It was a condition, a global pandemic. And as a result of this condition, there are going to be economic consequences and, I believe, spiritual consequences. And when I say spiritual, I'm talking about the church and individual Christians. All right? Those are the two areas of consequence I want us to think about. But not only do we have this idea of a condition, let me go back to that definition. We also have a result or an effect of an action. Now, part of the economic consequences we're going to have to look at are going to be the consequences that come from the actions that people and governments and businesses have taken during the coronavirus. You've got the global pandemic itself, which is a condition, and we're going to see the consequences of that condition. It's just the effect of the condition. But it is also, there are actions being taken right now. There's a $3 billion bailout plan? I think it's $3 billion. I think it's $3 billion. A $3 billion bailout plan that's should get approved and signed off by the president probably tomorrow, Friday. I think that's the latest information on that. Now, that bailout plan, that's going to be an action, and there's going to be a consequence to that action. There's going to be an effect. Will that action be positive or will it be negatively? Will it have short-term good but long-term consequences? We're talking 3 years down the road. All right. So we've got the condition, coronavirus, which is that condition is going to lead to economic consequences. We have the condition called coronavirus, which is going to lead to spiritual consequences. Then we have the action, the effect, and the actions people have taken during this global pandemic that will also have consequences on the economy. And we have decisions and actions being made by individual Christians and churches that will also have consequences. So we got to look at just the natural consequences of the condition, and then we have to look at the consequences of the action and look at the effect of the actions that were taken during the coronavirus pandemic. And we have to look at it from an economic perspective and a spiritual perspective. All right? I really want you to think about that. And I want you to think about this looking down the road. Not just looking till tomorrow, down the road. What are going to be the long-term consequences? Let's start with the economic fallout. And I've got two news reports that speak specifically to the economic situation. All right? Let's listen to them, and then we'll come back and talk about this. All right, here we go. Here's the first. Both of these reports were aired on NPR early this morning for their program Morning Edition. Let's listen.
This number is not surprising, yet is still stunning. Last week, in one single week, more than 3 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits. There is no occasion on record when so many people lost their jobs in a single week. Other economic crises have unfolded over months or years, not this. NPR correspondent Jim Zarroli covers business and economics and is on the line. Jim, good morning.
Good morning, Steve, or I guess not such a good morning.
Well, not such a good morning, and it hasn't been such a good week for many people. How much bigger is this number than the previous record?
It's really just a staggering number, and it's much worse than people thought. I mean, this is by far a record number of people losing their jobs in a single week. It is 5 times as much as we saw during the worst week of the Great Recession. In March 2009, we hit 665,000 first-time unemployment claims. This is way bigger than that.
Stating the obvious, every part of the economy is losing here, but some parts of the economy must be hurting worse than others.
Yeah, the losses have affected all kinds of jobs, and that's, because we have a multi-layered, complex economy. But a few industries have been especially hard hit, like transportation, especially airlines, energy, restaurants, hotels. So we're seeing Places like Florida and Nevada that depend on tourism hit really hard because nobody's traveling right now. A trade group for the hotel industry says they probably lost 1 million jobs since this crisis began. The head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, was on the Today Show this morning, and he said, we may well be in a recession, but he says we could rebound quickly.
What's happening here is people are being asked to close their businesses, to stay home from work, and to not engage in certain kinds of economic activity. And so they're pulling back. And at a certain point, we will get the spread of the virus under control. And at that time, confidence will return, businesses will open again, people will come back to work.
Well, that is one view of the future, I suppose, Jim Zarroli, that hopeful scenario that this is a disruption that does not change everything permanently and permanently shift the direction of the economy. But there he is using the word recession. And wasn't this a very strong economy, or imagined to be a very strong economy, just 1 month ago?
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, remember, before the virus struck, we were in the middle of a really strong job market. We had a 3.5% unemployment rate in February. Now the St. Louis Fed is saying we could see unemployment go to 30% in the next month or so, though they say it will come down pretty quickly.
I just want to mention, Jim Zarroli, I don't think unemployment numbers were quite so reliable at the beginning of the Great Depression, but it said that unemployment then was perhaps 25%. That was the Great Depression, and we're suddenly at a moment where it might be 30%, at least according to that one forecast.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, these are numbers that we didn't see during the worst of the great. We've never seen numbers like this. Now, the good thing is, it's happened really quickly, and it should recover pretty quickly. I spoke to Adam Hill of Worcester, Massachusetts, who worked until recently as a graphic designer at a company that does trade shows. He says as recently as a few weeks ago, the company was having a really good year.
Then all of a sudden, it's just this show canceled, and then another one, and it was within 2 weeks. I think 155 shows had canceled. I guess I wasn't too surprised when we got laid off.
He says he'll be brought back when the job market improves, but he doesn't know when.
Jim, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
That's NPR's Jim Zarroli.
Now I want you to comprehend that. Millions of people, no job, filing for unemployment, don't know when they're going to get their job back. All right, talking a possible forecast of a 30% unemployment number here in the United States of America. Now, that's a consequence. That's a short-term consequence, and now we have to try to figure out the forecast, right? The forecast could be, all right, yes, it's short-term. As soon as everything opens up, they hire everyone back, and the economy just takes off again. And this is just a bump in the road, a temporary setback, but everyone should be able to recover from it, and everyone should be okay, at least in theory. All right, that's a very positive forecast. But let's just say, long term, this has a devastating consequence on the unemployment number. Unemployment numbers increase dramatically across the United States of America, and you have lots of people who do not get their job back. Businesses who close their doors permanently, or industry that are so devastated that they don't, depending on how long this continues. Now, I think President Trump is trying to do everything he can to try to realize that we cannot maintain this for an extended period of time until we bring ourselves back into a Great Depression. But these are consequences that have to be discussed. The economic. Now, remember, the loss of human life is of the utmost importance, but economic suffering leads to lots of problems. All right. So let's just understand millions of people have filed for unemployment. Millions of people right now are trying to figure out what they're going to do for their future as far as their job is concerned. And they're probably trying to figure out where the next paycheck is coming from, which will greatly impact where their next, the next time they want to buy groceries and all the other, necessities that they're going to need. Just keep that in mind. Because I think that will lead to our second. And remember, our two areas, economic and spiritual. Just keep that in mind. All right. So that's the first report. Let's listen to the second.
We're starting to get data that helps us understand how badly the coronavirus pandemic has hit the U.S. economy. Washington was the first state in the country to report an outbreak, and since then, a lot of businesses have closed as people socially distance themselves. That has inevitably led to job losses. The state is seeing a massive increase in unemployment claims. Susan Levine told me about it. She's the commissioner for Washington State's Employment Security Department.
What we are seeing with our numbers is 4 to 5 times the volume that we saw at peak during the 2008 recession. In our call volumes alone, we have increased by over 1,000% on certain days, just week over week.
Is there anything in Washington State that you would point to as a bright spot, a particular company or industry that's doing a lot of hiring right now?
Well, we are hiring. We have, at this point, over 100 positions available, and we expect to expand that pretty dramatically. So we are seeing a tectonic shift happening in employment right now. At the same time that there are profound layoffs in sectors like hospitality, fitness, and dental services, we are hearing increases in job openings in grocery, delivery services, health sectors, and unemployment insurance customer service.
I want to ask you about this deal that the White House has reached with lawmakers, roughly $2 trillion in stimulus money going out all across the country. When you look at what that will mean for workers in Washington State, what do you hope to get from this?
We're working.
I said $2 billion. $2 trillion, it seems. I was way off in my number. $2 trillion. Now just think about, again, long-term consequences.
Hard to meet the demand with our existing tools, but given the scale and magnitude of those impacted, the federal government will be critical to helping expand benefits. Disaster unemployment assistance will allow those who currently are not eligible for assistance or where assistance is not sufficient to meet their needs to carry through this period of time. People are really desperate now, and we need to put money in their pocket, and we need to help businesses stay afloat.
Washington's Governor Jay Inslee announced last week that barbershops and beauty salons would have to close down. A lot of people who work in that particular industry are independent contractors. They can't file for unemployment. Is what you're saying that you would like Washington State to expand the definition of who can file for unemployment, or that the federal government is going to expand the definition of who can file those claims?
Disaster unemployment assistance, which is a federal program that is typically run by FEMA, or what is being proposed by Congress, would cover those not currently eligible for unemployment insurance as each of the individual states define it today. Typically used when you have a landslide or a hurricane or a forest fire. And what we are doing with this is proposing a redefinition and adding pandemic or COVID-19 to the definition of what a natural disaster is. Unemployment insurance is partial wage replacement. It is a great last resort. We need the federal government to help from a scale standpoint in making sure that everybody knows that they are eligible for these benefits that can be expanded with the federal government's support.
President Trump said this week that he wants the U.S. economy to open up and be, quote, raring to go by Easter. That's April 12th. Do you think Washington State will be ready to go?
As I go around my day, I think constantly about my 82-year-old mother, how not to be a vector for this disease to her that could kill her. Once we've got our curve flattened, and then once we have identified how do we interact with people without having to be suspicious of the contagion, that I believe will be when we can get back to normal. But we're a long way from there, Noelle. What we need to do is stay home and stay healthy.
Susan Levine, Commissioner for the Employment Security Department for Washington State, a department that is now hiring. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
There you have it. More discussion about the economy. There you have it. There's a lot of things we could take apart there, but here's what I want you to think about. What are going to be the long-term economic consequences, not only for the United States of America, not only for your state, not only for your city, but for you as an individual and your family? How is it going to impact yourself? How is it going to impact your neighbors? So we have when we're dealing with this entire situation, consequences is the next exit. I'm telling you, once this is all said and done, everyone's going to have to we're going to exit off the highway, and we're going to be in, the land of consequences. We're gonna be sitting there, and the road to consequences and economic consequences are going to be a major one. What is going to happen? There's a lot of questions, and we could speculate. But I want you to see that. Now, here's what I want to do. I said all of that to get us to now, I want you thinking about the economic consequences, and that's how the world is looking at it. The world is starting to do a lot of discussion about the economic consequences that's going to come from this, all right? Yes, how will things change? How big will the change be? But for Christians, for the church, we also need to stop, and we need to talk about consequences as well. Yes, the economic consequences will impact us, but I want to view all of that from a spiritual perspective, from a theological perspective. What is going to be the consequences when this is all said and done to the church? And I am hearing some very different perspectives. On one hand, I'm hearing a lot that, hey, we've been praying for spiritual revival. We've been praying for spiritual renewal. This is it. The consequence of this entire COVID-19 pandemic is going to be spiritual revival. We are going to see the church as we've never seen it before. Because, and I was listening to this on the way here on Christian radio, they were talking about, just think about it. For many people, their God is money, but that's all being taken away because the economy is falling apart. Just think about it. For many people, their God was sports. Well, sports have all been canceled, so that's been taken away. For many, their God was Hollywood, but that's being taken away. So as all of this is being taken away from them, they will ultimately look to the true God, the Creator, and they will look to Him, and this could be a chance where we see an explosion in people who come to faith in Christ. They also stated that this is an opportunity that during this time, Christians, all of these distractions are being taken from them, so they will turn and pour their heart and mind and soul into scripture, into sermons, into family worship. And that when this is all said and done, Christians are going to be changed, and that this will make the church stronger. That when Christians all return back to their churches, there's going to be a greater sense of spiritual unity, a greater sense of spiritual strength, and we're going to see things that we've never witnessed before. So what I heard this morning on Christian radio is that, hey, this is all great. The consequences of this is nothing but extraordinary, and it's going to be a time of great spiritual renewal. Not only a time of a large number of people who will become converted, but a time of a spiritual renewal in the life of believers. Now, that's one perspective that I heard, again, this morning on Christian radio. I tend to be skeptical of that kind of talk, because I've heard Christians talk constantly about, a great time of spiritual renewals on its way, and it doesn't happen. We'll throw that theory out there. Theory number one, as far as the spiritual consequences, this is all going to be positive. Now, let's throw out a different theory. Is it possible, or let me state it this way. What are the possible negative consequences that the church could face? All right. Now, let's bring in what we just talked about as far as the economic. Could this have a profound negative impact on many churches economically? Is it possible? I'll just throw this idea out there that some churches will not recover, that they're going to end up, as a result of this, economically, they're going to be done. They're going to close their doors. They're going to be finished, or it's going to lead to a church split. Church split or closing their doors because of the economic fallout that's going to arise from this, because people are not walking through the door. No money's going to the offering plate. So now churches are going to have to start begging people to give, electronically. Some will, some will not. I wonder how many churches are going to face great economic upheaval. Now, and also think about this. Millions of people are filing for unemployment. Millions. talking about a possible 30% unemployment number. Now, here's the question. Think of churches that have these churches that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and let's just throw out a theory. All of a sudden, 30% of their congregation, we'll just throw out a 30% number, is now all of a sudden unemployed. They don't know where their next check. They're not going to be giving to the church. So what happens to the church? Now, some churches can't survive. They've got these big buildings that they're paying outrageous amount of money on. They've got all kinds of what happens? Do they start laying off staff? What happens? Many pastors, their livelihood is dependent on what the church can do for them. What will the pastors do? Now, and not only this, now this is a very important thing. The church then has a responsibility. Look, the church's responsibility is not just to ensure that it survives and protects itself. The church has a responsibility to try to help those in the congregation who now are financially needy. The number of needy people within a church who may not have a job could possibly, if what we just heard, if the economic forecast is accurate, could explode. Well, how is the church going to meet those needs? And how is the church going to try to meet the needs of those in the community around them who have great need, if the economic consequences are as bad as what we just heard? Those are all going to have a profound impact on the church, right? The church's own survival economically, the church's ability to help those in the congregation who have need, the church's ability to help those in the community. Some churches have gigantic budgets. I mean, crazy, $500,000, $600,000, $1 million, even from my perspective, $100,000 is a crazy budget for a church. I mean, my church is in the middle of nowhere with not a lot of people. So we don't have some of those issues that some churches will have. But I guarantee you there's going to be even there's a possibility of economic problems here in my little church. I mean, obviously, no one's walking in, placing an offering in the plate. So I don't even know what our consequence is going to be. There is going to be economic consequences. And here's the reason I think, now listen, I place this in the spiritual side, because it's going to affect churches. That's one of the reasons I'm calling it spiritual. But guess what happens when churches start having economic problems? You ever been to a church business meeting? You know how many churches fall apart and have church splits and pastors leave because of economic concerns? Because of money, 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 money. Money, money, money. You don't tell me that doesn't have a profound spiritual impact on the church and the life of its members. Right? So the economic fallout is going to end up impacting the church. I don't know if churches have a plan and how they're going to deal with it. I know I can probably tell you right now, churches are scrambling. I have heard that the churches are already sending out emails saying, hey, give. Don't forget to give. Don't forget to give. Don't forget to give. There's already churches. And I've already seen some articles saying, hey, church, don't send out an article asking for people to give until you first send out an email, or you first send out a message telling everyone, hey, what do you need for us to do for you? And so there's already a spiritual divide occurring within certain elements of Christianity. Now, so there's that. Now, what are the long-term spiritual? So there's kind of the economic concerns that slide over into the spiritual world. But what do you think the spiritual consequences are going to be? I have a feeling. Here's my take. I know there's lots of debate within Christianity right now, like, if you live stream, people are not going to come back to church, and people have been out of church for a couple of weeks. They won't come back. I don't know if that's going to have any profound impact. I can't say. I think people find reasons to miss church. People did it before the coronavirus, COVID-19. People found I've heard every excuse under the sun why they can't come to church. And they always believe that their excuse is good. I don't know if this is going to increase it. Here's my fear. I believe that during a time of a global pandemic, where you think people would be turning to things of God more, I think there will be some that will, but I think the majority of people, it's pretty much life as usual, other than like maybe they're not going to work, maybe they're not going to school. But I don't think they're necessarily increasing hardcore Bible study. I think people are spending a lot of time watching Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, and other streaming services, watching movies, playing games, going on with their activities. I'm suspicious of some great spiritual revival coming out of this. I am suspicious. I've seen some reports where churches are claiming that, hey, in our live stream, 3,000 people accepted Christ on Sunday. I've seen some of those claims. I'm suspicious of those kinds of claims. I really am. Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe I shouldn't be so cynical. I would love, as I've stated from the very beginning of this, I believe this is a great opportunity where we're forced to stop and we're given an opportunity for spiritual renewal. We're given an opportunity for spiritual revival, but the people have to take it. And what I've seen from many churches is, hey, let's reduce the amount of preaching and teaching that we're giving the people, almost 90%. We'll just go to one service a week and think they're justified in it. Well, how is that going to be spiritual renewal? How is that going to be spiritual renewal? Hey, I've got a congregation that I'm supposed to feed. I've got a congregation that I'm supposed to disciple. I've got a congregation I'm supposed to equip. Hey, we got a global pandemic going on. Hey, we're going to live stream once a week. Hey, there we go. That doesn't, if the church isn't going to even use this as a time to teach more, then why would the people in the pew use this time to study more, right? If the church is leading by example, hey guys, hey, you get a break from church. We're only going to stream once a week, 10:45, 11 a.m. on Sunday mornings. The rest of the week, go do what you want. Now, they may not say it that way, but isn't that what they are saying? Isn't that what they're showing by example? Isn't that what they're demonstrating? So I am very much questioning the whole talk. And if you listen to James Dobson's program, what's it called? Family Talk. He used to be focused on the family. Dr. James Dobson, he had Pastor Greg Laurie from Harvest Church. I think it's in California. It's a Calvary Chapel. Greg Laurie is a very popular pastor. Has a congregation on the size of his congregation, far larger than anything I could ever comprehend or imagine. And, they were the ones talking about spiritual revival. This is, and I'm just sitting there going, I just don't know. You remember 9/11? After everyone talked about, after 9/11, churches were packed. And right after 9/11, churches were packed across the United States of America. People were fearful. People were turning to God, supposedly, and we were talking about a great spiritual revival is coming after 9/11. I don't know how many times I saw that. Did it actually happen? I don't think it actually happened. I think we love to pretend that great spiritual revival is happening when nothing really changes. So I think it's going to be business as usual. Churches will open. Maybe there will be a massive influx of people. The theory is that right when all the restrictions are lifted, the churches are going to be packed. That's the theory. They're going to just be like, people are just going to flood in. And maybe that will be true. Then a week or two later, right back to normal. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be true of please hear what I'm saying. I'm speaking of Christianity in general. I'm not speaking of every individual or every congregation. There's going to be congregations who hopefully people are going to be renewed. And hopefully while the world things are being taken away from them, they can't trust in money. Sports is gone. Hollywood movie theaters are closed. Maybe that will lead some to turn their focus to the things of God. Maybe it will. And let's pray. And I pray for that. I want it to happen. I am no way saying I don't want it to happen. I want true spiritual renewal. I just think that we better wait and see. All right. I'll stop right there. I've already gone a lot longer than I intended for this. Yeah, 44 minutes, much longer, but I just wanted here's what I want to do. I'll end this way. Consequences is the next exit. That's the next exit. As we're right now in the midst of the pandemic and we're living and we're trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen right here in my area. We just got our first confirmed case of someone with COVID-19. Currently, they're not going to lock anything down. I thought that was going to happen. So I think a lot of mayors and city officials and state officials are really trying to push back on that because they see the economic consequences, the immediate economic consequences. And I think a lot of places are going to try to pull back on restrictions. Now, if we pull back on restrictions and then all of a sudden the virus starts spreading again like crazy and we get an increase, then I think it's going to go full-blown lockdown. I don't know. But what I want you to think about is when all of this comes to an end, it's not over. Consequences are coming. Consequences are coming. And as consequences are coming, I want you to start thinking about what the economic consequences are going to be to our country, to your state, to your city, and to your life. But those economic consequences and all the other consequences are going to slide over into our spiritual life. What is going to be the consequences to your church? What is going to be the consequence to your spiritual life? What is happening right now to your spiritual life in the midst of this? When it's all said and done, do you think your church is going to be more spiritual, more godly, with a greater hunger and thirst for God? Do you think as a result of all of these so-called idols, Hollywood, sports being basically removed, that your people are going to, that those things are going to remain absent from their life even when they come back? Or what do you think is going to happen? Email me your thoughts to newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. I really would like to get your thoughts and your feedback on this. Some of you may have a far more positive outlook. Hey, spiritual renewal, revival is coming. I tend to be more cynical because every time I hear that, especially after 9/11, that's all everyone talked about. This is it. God is bringing America to its knees. People are going to repent. The revival is here. Look at and what happened? All those people who supposedly came into the church walked right back out the door. Once the fear was gone, once the concern was gone, they went back to their life because salvation is an internal work done by God through His Spirit. All right, it's not an external thing. External motivators can make us appear to be religious and turn to religious concepts. But unless the Spirit of God works salvation in us, converts us, regenerates the dead sinner remains a dead sinner who just got really concerned about things and so got religious for a little bit. But that's not conversion. Conversion happens, revival happens because of an inner working of God, not an external work. At least that's my thought. Maybe I'm wrong there. You could challenge me on that. But again, I'm just trying to throw this out and get you to think about it. All right. There's some scriptures I wanted to look at, but I'll stop right there. Email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Check out our pod page, podpage.com/theology --central. Please check that out. Let me know what you think. Please let me know what you think about those pages. Are you going to use those pages? If you are using them, let me know. Any thoughts you have on them would be great to know what to do with them moving forward. Email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. We'll stop right there. Just remember, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Be safe, be informed, take necessary precautions for yourself, and look out for the health and the life of other people. But remember, start thinking now, the next exit after this is over is a road called consequences. And the whole world is going to be facing some consequences. We need to think about it not only from an economic perspective, we need to think about it from a spiritual perspective. All right. Everyone have a great day. I'll be back live on the air shortly. God bless.